Friends, so today again we are going to talk about urbanization. In the first lecture, I defined what urban population is, how is an urban locality defined in censuses of different countries. Then I also talked about some measures of urbanization, which are used for measuring say level of urbanization or degree of urbanization and speed of urbanization. I suggested use your urban by total into 100 as a level of urbanization measure, then Arriaga's index, Kingsley-Davis's index. I also talked little bit about rank size rule, and in the previous lecture we discussed how urban population in India has grown over the years. I showed you the trend in the level of urbanization from 1901 to 2001 on the basis of census data. We also talked little bit about causes of urban growth, natural growth and migration, push and pull factors, and the major causes of rural to urban migration as based on census data. Let us spend some more time on urbanization and today try to link urbanization with general developmental issues. So, today we are focusing on theories of urbanization and development. Now, to begin with, I can say, and wherever you feel like you can ask questions, you can ask for clarification, you want to add something, you can add. In demographic and economic literature, urbanization is frequently used as an indicator of development. By this I mean that in empirical theories of fertility, mortality, morbidity, HIV/AIDS or health in general, wherever we use some development indicators as independent variables. In doing causal analysis, say causal analysis of decline in fertility or causal analysis of decline in morbidity or changes in sex ratios, and we need development as an independent variable. There urbanization is frequently used as a proxy variable of development, that you all know. Although development has a larger connotation, and as you are familiar with human development reports, their development is defined more in terms of longevity or life expectancy, literacy, enrollment rates and income. But in demographic literature, you see, if you read articles in Population and Development Review or our Indian journals, Journal of Family Welfare or Demography India or Population Studies International Journal, quite often in studies of demographic transition or even migration, we use urbanization as an indicator of development. Now, is it true that urbanization is an indicator of development? We will look at this relationship. That means, today I want to have a discussion on, is it possible that a country is urbanized but not developed, or is it possible that a country is not urbanized and is still developed, or a country is highly urbanized and undeveloped, or a country is not urbanized and is also not developed. So, there are all kinds of permutations and possibles. Are they equally likely, or you guess that countries which are more urbanized are also economically more developed? Maybe because urbanization has promoted development, or maybe the development has promoted urbanization, but the two go together, they are concomitant. Now, State of World Population 2009 gives you data on urban populations for different countries. It shows that the more developed countries are all highly urbanized countries also, and the least developed countries are all low on urbanization, suggesting that perhaps there is a link between urbanization and development. Yeah. This is how empirically we work on issues of sociological nature, that if we find that wherever there is X, there is also Y. So, maybe there is a reason to believe that there is some connection. Now, since according to data all the developed countries, and these developed countries are developed in the sense that they have very high per capita income, they have very high life expectancy, they have very high school enrollment and adult literacy. Whatever indicator of development you take, the countries of Europe, Northwest Europe more and Eastern Europe after that, United States and Australia and New Zealand, and some emerging countries of Asia and Africa like Japan or Eastern Asian countries, they are also developed countries, and there too level of urbanization is very high, 70%, 80%, 90% of the entire population of the country is living in so called urban areas. And in the least developed countries, the levels of urbanization are low, and this suggests that perhaps there is a link between the two. But perhaps there is no simple relationship. There is a relationship, but what kind of relationship? Symmetrical, asymmetrical, direct, indirect, or through some mediating variables, or if there are some moderator variables, to use the language of research methods, then we have to identify what kind of relationship is this. And there are certain changes which are going to limit the strength of this relationship. For example, the level of urbanization in the more developed countries has almost stabilized. In the less developed countries, on the other hand, urbanization is occurring at a fast pace, and this is because we have seen that urbanization follows a logistic growth model. With time, proportion of population or percentage of population living in urban areas grows like this. So, initially these are least developed countries. In least developed countries, not only the level of urbanization is low, but the rate of growth of urban population or the speed of urbanization is also low. Then you have developing countries. In developing countries, levels of urbanization are modest, but the speed of urbanization in this part of the logistics is quite high. As time changes, then the developing countries are also increasing at higher rates of growth of urban population. And developed countries which have already achieved a high level of urbanization, say around 75%, here least developed countries 15%, developing countries say in the range of 20 to 40%. So, these developed countries which have already reached a level of urbanization 75% or more, their level of urbanization is still growing, but the rate of growth of urban population and also of the level of urbanization is rather slow. So, that means in the future in developed countries there may be more development, per capita income may rise further, life expectancy may rise further. One day when we were talking about mathematical models, I showed that how a demographer shows that in the future it is still possible to raise life expectancy beyond 82 years. And he gave some reasons that by reducing smoking practices, for example, we can reduce chances of dying during certain ages and life expectancy can increase. Education has already reached a high level in developed countries that may not increase further, but still there is some optimism that developed countries can develop further and the level of urbanization may not grow further. So, the relationship between development and urbanization can break down there. Yes.
So, okay, our general assumption is that there is a positive relationship between urbanization and development, of course. But the Human Development Index prepared by some state, that is states like West Bengal and Kerala,
yes,
please say that it is something different, because Kerala urbanization is very low. But at the same time, if you consider the development indicators like morbidity, mortality, fertility, education, or life expectancy, it is high.
Yeah.
So yesterday also one report published by the Ministry of Family Health and Family Welfare, it said that in Kerala life expectancy by 2021 is around 6 years more than the national average. But in Kerala, urbanization is very low.
Yes.
States like Himachal Pradesh also,
yes,
this urbanization is very low. But if you consider the this indicators of development, they are high.
yeah, so if you take it, yes, you are right. And earlier we were talking only about Kerala model of development, where per capita income, Kerala model of development implied low per capita income, but high social development, empowerment of women, education, literacy, and low fertility, low mortality. Now, of course, Kerala also has high per capita income. It is not as low as it was in the past.
But not much urbanization compared.
But not much urban, because there is no industrialization of it. Kerala lacks industrialization and urbanization, but in terms of other indicators of development, it is a developed state. And then demographers used to say that it is social development in Kerala which is responsible for reduction in fertility. Now, you have another equally interesting case, that is of Himachal Pradesh.
So we can see about the Uttarakhand state. The same condition is going on there, like the industrialization and these agricultural activities are not that.
Yes. Uttarakhand may follow the Himachal model soon.
Both. After Kerala, Himachal and Uttarakhand is coming in every aspect, increasing.
Good education, low domestic violence, and empowerment of NFHS 3 data show that in Himachal Pradesh, the degree of domestic violence is one of the lowest. Jammu Kashmir. So, that means there can be different models of development and urbanization. So it is not necessary that for development you need a high level of urbanization, and that is why the last that concept of rurbanization, rurban, rural plus urban, that makes sense in the Indian context. You need not promote urbanization or industrialization further. A mix of urban and rural and urban outgrowth and suburban populations and development of rural areas can pave the way for social development, demographic transition, equality, empowerment of women.
Normally, we define development in the economic sense. I think
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the problem. We redefine this. Although we say that the indicators like morbidity, low fertility, low mortalities are considered as the indicators of development, but in our general assumption is that development is something economic sense. That's the kind of that's the problem. So we redefine.
So we distinguish. So we also distinguish between economic development and social development. Normally, we expect that for social development, some minimal degree of economic development is necessary, but then the two are not the same thing. So you can have situations in which you have high economic development, but low social development. There are many Gulf countries where level of income is very high, and that is because of natural resource of petroleum, but social development is low. That is why they are not categorized as developed countries despite high level of per capita income. Inequality is high, illiteracy is high, empowerment of women is low. fertility is high, mortality is also high. So, infrastructure, rural infrastructure is poor. So, there are many permutations and combinations, and we make a distinction between development, economic development and social development. So, that means you are raising an interesting question, an interesting research question also, that if we want to relate development to urbanization, to what aspect of development urbanization we related, to economic development or to social development. Yes, it is an interesting
We should
question.
combine both aspects to know exactly.
Or we can combine the two. Yes.
As it varies from culture to culture and society to society.
So, like any other concept in sociology, development is also or can be seen as a subjective and culture specific, context specific concept. Now, coming back to developed and developing countries, in developed countries, population of urban areas has almost stabilized. You see, also because the natural growth is very low due to low fertility or below replacement level fertility. The rate of growth of urban population is very low, and whatever growth is occurring, that is because of rural to urban migration or because of migration from other countries. In least developed countries, urban populations are growing fast due to both high natural increase, high fertility, and also due to rural to urban migration. Now, several of them are urbanizing at a rate which is higher than the rate at which the developed countries historically urbanized when they were at the similar level of urbanization. So, there are two ways of looking at speed of urbanization in a country like India. You saw that according to 2001 census, India was 27% urban and the speed of urbanization was 0.8. One can 0.8 is a small increase in urbanization, and one can say that India is not urbanizing as fast as it was expected. But if you compare the speed of urbanization at which today's developed countries grew when they had a level of urbanization 27%, then you find that India or less developed countries at corresponding levels of urbanization are urbanizing much faster, and that is because of both natural increase and transfer of population from rural to urban areas. Several of the least developed countries and less developed countries are growing at a rate which is higher than the rate at which, this is the meaning of this statement. Now, there are many other and new factors that affect development in the present day developing countries which were absent when today's developed countries were urbanizing. This report, UNFPA report, also shows some other interesting facts or data, shows data on urbanization, that in year 2009, first time the world becomes nearly 50% urban. In the history of mankind, we are in that era when world for the first time become 50% urban. The level of urbanization in the more developed countries is 75, in less developed countries it is 45, and in the least developed countries, in the category of developing countries, certain countries have been identified as the least developed, there the level of urbanization is 29. Merely looking at these figures, one would say that development would cause urbanization, more development, more urbanization. The urban population in the world is growing at 2% rate per year. The urban population in the more developed countries, however, is growing at 0.6% per year only. Low natural increase and lots of restrictions on migration. The urban population in the less developed countries is growing at 2.6% per year, mainly because of natural increase. And the urban population in the least developed countries is growing at 4.1% per year, very high, 4%. That means in about 16-17 years time, population of their cities is more than doubling. It is a big problem for them. Urban population growing at 4% per year and doubling in 16-17 years time. You have to provide for infrastructure and
In the less developed countries around 2.6%.
yes.
I think India is below 2. Below.
No, when I said the speed of urbanization was 0.8, that was the percentage change on per year basis in the level of urbanization. Otherwise, in case of India, growth of urban population as such is slightly more than this. India is urbanizing at a higher rate than 2.6. Growth of, we must distinguish between rate at which urban population is growing and the rate at which level of urbanization is increasing. So, this figure of 2.6 or 0.6 for developed countries and 2.6 for less developed countries refers to growth of urban population, cities, medium sized towns. So, this 2009 is very important. First time we become 50% urban. More on nature of relationship, urbanization, industrialization and development are concomitant processes. It is difficult to say what exactly is the cause of what. The changes may be symmetrical. How? Because agricultural society was a village society and it was with industrialization and creation of new opportunities for employment, better opportunities, more productivity, more lucrative wages, more security, more modern values, western, individualism, freedom, autonomy, secularism and independence from several primordial loyalties, caste, kinship, this and that, attracted people towards cities or urban areas. Here it must be said that as this point arose last time, that the urbanization in developed countries and urbanization in less developed countries are qualitatively two different phenomena. When we say that industrialization and economic development promoted urbanization and city was a source of modernization, that applies more to developed countries. In our countries, demographic pressure in rural areas has been a major source of urbanization, and then colonial policies in all countries of Asia, Africa and Latin America, their urbanization started not as an spontaneous process or concomitant of development and social development, but as a result of colonial policies by which they were trying to sell their projects of developed country, industries of developed countries and buying primary goods or agricultural goods at cheaper rates from hinterland. So, you find that more developed countries which started urbanizing in 19th century are the most urbanized countries today. Economic development and industrial development have done this. Less developed countries, most of which were colonies of the developed countries, did not experience industrialization and remained less urbanized. There are lots of statistics to show that during the British period, level of industrialization in India fell from a reasonably good level. At one time, industry of India was famous worldwide. Indian textile, muslin, India's irrigation facilities, India's metal industry. India was doing good in many non-agricultural or allied activities also. But during the colonial times, industrial activities, artisanal activities and household industry declined. So, the level of industrialization went down. And perhaps that was the reason why urbanization also did not increase to that level. You have seen when I presented census data on urbanization that initially in the last century in India, urbanization sometime rose, sometime fell. There was a fluctuation in the level of urbanization, because we did not have expansion of industry, we did not have expansion of cities. It was only in the second half of the 20th century, when they became independent, that this triad of Asia, Africa, Latin America, triad of these countries, that they started building infrastructure, providing various services to their population and developing industry. So, in India after independence, we had big industry, big educational institutions, big dams, hospitals, specialized research centers in health, and associated growth of banking, transport and communication and information. So, now the less developed countries started urbanizing. Several of their cities have now developed as business, service and administrative cities. Sometimes we make a functional classification of cities, whether they are religious towns or business towns or industrial towns or cities or service towns. Many cities in less developed countries are developing as business, service and administrative cities along with industrial cities. One can also say that there is a symmetrical relationship, in the sense that not only economic development would promote urbanization, urbanization can also promote economic development. How? How will cities promote development and industrialization? The regions are associated with the following: high density of population. Urban areas have higher density of population, by definition they have higher density of population. Now, you were saying about Kerala something. Now, although Kerala is rural, but Kerala has the highest density of population in India. So, remaining rural, they are benefiting from this high density thing and from the economic of scale. In other states where density of population in rural areas is low, urbanization of those states will produce more density of population at places of concentration, cities, outgrowths, suburban areas, and so the industry, business and service can benefit from economy of scale.
Here, okay. Usually, you say that urbanization, the density of the population linked to industry or developed
Yes.
industry, but in Kerala it is something different. Not industry, but service.
Service.
Service sector. Okay. that's-
Service sector,
that's-
transport,
transport,
communication,
communication.
house building,
House
roads,
building.
education, hospitals.
Hospital,
Yeah.
that's kind of-
Urbanization is also conducive to cultural change, and it promotes more creativity and innovation. Cities and towns are places of creativity and innovation. Rural populations are mostly traditional. And urban areas free individuals from traditional institutions. Change, you see the change from joint family to nuclear family, changes in kinship pattern, changes in relationship with church, or in case of Hinduism, rituals, supernatural beliefs or religious practices, sanskaras. Then there is greater participation in global processes. Urban populations are more mobile. They move more from one urban area to another within the district or within the state or between states or between countries, and they have better transport and communication facilities, better infrastructure and conditions that promote need for achievement. In psychological sense also, urban areas can lead to development because they have positive values on things like need for achievement. Why need for achievement? You see, long back when we started theorizing about development, sociologists theorized development in their own way, psychologists theorized development in their own way, anthropologists and others looked at development in their own way in respective disciplinary frameworks. Mackilley-Land, one psychologist came to India to study what are causes of development or underdevelopment, and after spending quite some time in Indian industry, he found that one thing in which Indians are lacking is the need for achievement. From that psychological perspective, India is not developed mainly because Indians lack in need for achievement. And he also defined need for achievement in an interesting way. Somebody who is incapable and has high aspirations, high ambitions, high dreams, he does not have high need for achievement. Somebody who has very high level of competence and therefore he also has high aspirations, that may also not be necessarily a fit case for high need for achievement. For Mackilley-Land, need for achievement was defined as a characteristic of taking calculated risk, a little more, with full assessment of our capabilities. If we want to achieve a little more, ability to take risk, calculated risk. So, imagine that there is some friend of yours from your village or town, a useless fellow, throughout spending 2 years, 3 years in each class, and passing high school after 2-3 attempts with 3rd division, intermediate 3rd division, BA 3rd division, and preparing for civil service exam. We will not say that this person has high need for achievement. He is not taking calculated risk, he is a fool. And somebody who has lot of potential, you can also find, you have several such friends who are extremely good throughout first class, very good scholastic achievement, and they are contented type. Indian culture produces contented type people. So, they also have low need for achievement even when they are doing better than others. Need for achievement is the ability to take calculated risk. And urban populations are obviously much better in developing this psychological characteristic among people as compared to rural population. Rural populations make you traditional. You are born in a tradition and you remain traditional. You follow traditional occupation, you follow traditional belief system, you remain at the place where you are born. Urban populations, by making you free from traditional institutions and making you a participant in global processes, by exposing you to new ideas and by also creating some kind of insecurity, because the traditional tradition was bad, but tradition was also good. Tradition was a source of security. In urban areas, that traditional security has gone. So, you become a little insecure. Now, in presence of all these factors, you develop high need for achievement, and that is good for economic development and modernization. And yet, there is a difference between urbanization and development when we use these terms in population sociology. Urbanization is quintessentially a demographic phenomenon, while development is an economic or social phenomenon. Urbanization is merely a process of population concentration. When people move from rural areas where density of population is lower to urban areas where density of population is higher, urbanization takes place, as simple as. Looked at from this perspective, when wanderers and food gatherers developed settled agriculture and started living in villages, urbanization started. Today, we posit rural population as something opposed to urbanization, but actually it was settling down in rural villages that paved the way for urbanization, because the settling down in rural areas, in villages, was the first form of concentration of population. Gradual increase in the size of village habitation led to more urbanization. in the developing countries where urbanization is occurring quite fast, this is because people are moving from rural areas to urban areas and also from smaller urban areas to big cities. There are both types of movements, from rural to urban and also from smaller places to bigger places. Like if you look at the class composition of students present here, you will find that most students have moved from smaller towns or moderate sized towns or smaller cities to bigger cities. On the other hand, development requires huge investments and improvement in productivity. So far, we saw that there is a integral and positive link, whether relationship is from urbanization to development side or development to urbanization side, but there is a definite relationship which is positive. Now, some sociologists have also looked at rural urban relationship as a relationship of conflict and as a relationship in which urban areas are exploiting rural areas, or urban areas are preventing growth of rural areas, or large cities or urban agglomerations are preventing growth of nearby urban population, nearby towns and cities. Some political analysts see this relationship between urban and rural areas as exploitative. They focus on urban rural conflict and ways in which urban areas grow at the expense of rural areas. According to this thesis, growth of urbanization may not lead to development and growth of all. Urban areas will grow and rural areas will decay. Now, to some extent this kind of observation has been made in our 5-year plans one after another, including your 11th 5-year plan, inclusive growth. They say that we have developed a lot, we have grown, we have urbanized, we have industry, but the rural populations have not grown, or sometimes the structural processes of growth have been such that rural and tribal populations have suffered as a consequence of development of the whole country. So, expansion of urbanization may rather lead to marginalization and exploitation of rural masses, relationship of conflict.
Can we say the relationship between urbanization and industrialization? The first process, I don't know whether the first process we say that it is migration, it may lead to urbanization.
Yes.
So in this case, as you mentioned, urbanization means the concentration of population.
Yes.
So some kind of insecurity will arise. It means the need of achievement. So some industry will start. That is a industrialization. Then the next process will be the development. If people are developed, I think it will lead to modernization. I don't know.
Yes, you are right.
Will
Yes.
lead to urbanization.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe.
No, you are right. What you have in mind is, yes, you are right that sometime rural to urban migration may be caused by push factors, but then it leads to greater concentration of population in urban areas, makes people insecure and look for all kinds of avenues, opportunities, alternatives, and the entrepreneurs and industrialists or organizers of informal labor market can take advantage of people and economic activities start, which leads to economic development and also to urbanization. Yes. And by changing need for achievement or various other types of needs, need for power, locus of control, urbanization can change locus of control. In place of attributing your successes and failures to some outside thing or God or religion or some supernatural entity, the moment you start attributing your successes and failures to yourself, you have high locus of control, and we believe that urban areas are more conducive to create internal locus of control. Now, for students of sociology, another interesting question would be the relationship between demographic transition and urbanization, because we are passing through the second stage of demographic transition. What are possibilities here? It is possible to argue that in developing countries, demographic transition and not the development contributed to growth of cities, weakening the correlation between urbanization and development. If urbanization occurs because of demographic transition, then it has no or very weak connection with development. When the population of developing countries started growing at a fast rate above 2% due to fall in the death rate, it could not be absorbed in agriculture, which was almost stagnant. To improve agriculture, to improve productivity of agriculture, you need irrigation facilities, you need modernization, mechanization of agriculture, you need modern high yield variety seeds, chemicals, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, you need industrialization, and you also have to provide some alternative or supplementary employment for processing of agricultural products or household industry or for artisanal family, something supplementary and which require industrialization. So, therefore, the surplus population started moving towards cities, whether there was any need for them or there was no need for them in urban areas, which also explains Ashish Bose's concept of pushback, that people are pushed from rural to urban areas. No, they are going to urban areas not because of pull, but because of push factors. But when they do not, due to lack of skills, lack of connections, network, social capital, the modern day sociological term, social capital, due to lack of social capital, trust, institutions, networking, culture, when they do not find satisfactory source of employment in urban areas, many of them want to return back. So, this is pushback. Anyway, this demographic transition leads to rapid growth of urbanization, though without development.
So, but at the time it is also cause a lot of problem, because in
Yeah.
lot of a place where people more number of people, but lack of development to lead to
Lack of development.
lot of
Slums,
crime
yes,
and
yes.
sociologically
Yeah.
also it is.
Yeah. So, this is the character of urbanization in India. Undoubtedly, India is a developing country, and India has one of the oldest civilizations and has had a long history of cities. There is a lot of documentation of city culture, city life, city religions, city values in Pali and Sanskrit, in Buddhist literature. Old cities of India were, however, fort cities or places of pilgrimage, or universities, education center, Gurukul, Rishikuls, and they were small in number and size. Their functions were sometimes political and religious, fort cities. The large cities of today are so large that their population is larger than the population of many countries. This kind of city, city of the size of Mumbai, these kinds of cities did not exist in the past. And administration, trade and commerce, industry and transport and communication have emerged as the new functions of cities. So, this produces a kind of over urbanization thesis. Studies of urbanization in the less developed countries contradict that there is a positive correlation between urbanization and development, and produce the over urbanization thesis. Means, even though the rate of urbanization may be slower than our expectation, but we are over urbanized from the perspective that we lack in urban infrastructure, employment, health, social sector, and in modern and western values. Urban places or cities are not the places of modernization or change of the population. According to this thesis, the present day less developed countries are more urbanized than the developed countries were at the same level of development. I have already mentioned this. And the quality of urban population in the developing countries is poor. So, you have slums, unemployment, high mortality, high morbidity, illiteracy, crime, violence, in urban areas more than was perhaps the case when developed countries were at this level. This also produces morphologically the concept of dual city. In almost all cities, Delhi, Old Delhi, New Delhi, Kanpur, civil lines, Old Kanpur, you go to any city, Hyderabad, any city, you have old and new. Old is dying, highly dense, traditional market, traditional lifestyle, poverty, and new is modern, malls, new means malls, modern, big roads, good infrastructure, better electricity, better roads, better schools, government offices, and if there is a temple, then the quality of temple in new city is much better than the quality of temples or churches or mosques in the old city, which are dirty and crowded. And temples of new city are more modern with all modern facilities. And actually, in the less developed countries, you find three things: rapid growth of large cities. Large cities are growing fast. In India also this was happening till very recent time, that larger cities were growing fast and tiny towns were declining in size. Tiny towns were facing a negative rate of growth. Rapid growth was observed in large city. Then division of city into two different parts, one modern and developed, the other as traditional and poor. Then overpopulation in the urban areas, particularly large cities, leading to creation of large squatter settlements and slums. Now we have a lot of data on slums for all cities of India, and a very high proportion of population in all cities of size 100,000 plus, and more so in cities of size 1 million plus, you find squatter settlements and slums. Data show that the large cities are growing faster still than the smaller cities. As a matter of fact, many tiny towns have experienced a declining trend. Registrar General 2009 in one report said. This phenomenon produces city primacy, that is, a situation in which large cities have disproportionately more population than smaller cities and towns. In the Western countries, demographers and mathematical model builders talked of some kind of rank size rule, but this rank size rule, the statistical pattern does not apply in less developed countries like India because of city primacy and primacy of large urban populations, making them unmanageable by city planners and requiring large investment to keep them livable. For development planning, a good option would be to develop smaller cities and towns and restrict movement of people toward the larger cities. So, perhaps you have to do both the things. You have to develop urban areas to provide better facilities, and you also have to develop rural areas so that less people are moving towards urban areas due to push of rural factors. Consequently, those cities are still the places and sources of modernization, and yet they have a traditional part, slum areas or squatter settlement, where the rural social institutions and arrangements are maintained. Most of the Indian cities, including Delhi, have a new city or a civil lines and an old part, old Delhi, old Hyderabad, old Lucknow. They are all dual cities in that sense. In the old city, one finds continuity of traditional kinship, caste, regional networks. The new poor migrants depend upon them for decisions regarding the choice of destination and also for their adjustment to the harsh conditions of urban living. D'Souza, who has worked on urbanization of India, makes this comment. So, there are some new concerns: growing size of slums, informal sector and its role in modernizing economy, influence of kinship, caste, religion and region of origin on the migrants' adaptation to the new situation. The condition of urban poor and structural and cultural marginalization, income, savings and loan pattern, organization, health, education, welfare and self-reliance among the poor. These are some new concerns for study of urban population. Slum improvement programs and consequences of urban poverty for women and family, and identity and social stereotypes. These are going to be big issues. Now, let me finish today's lecture. From my side, I will finish today's lecture by presenting a quote from Perry's study of Bhilai steel town. He says, to quote, "It is true that even 40 years on, regional identities continue to be marked in terms, for example, of diet, dress, the worship of deities and the language of home. It is in the home rather than the world that the distinctions are most manifest, and the maintenance of them is significantly gendered. Even after years of Bhilai, the Hindi spoken by many South Indian women remains rudimentary. In the masculine space of the plant, regional ethnicity is the focus of legitimized joking, but outside the topic is more touchy and ethnic stereotyping has a harder edge. Malayalis are clever." There is no such biological correction, but he says that Malayalis are believed to be clever, cunning and clannish and always get on. Telugus are fakeless and often inebriated and generally do not. Where there are Bengalis, there is Netagiri, political bossism, and where Biharis, Dadagiri or gangsterism. This last identity, which includes people from eastern Uttar Pradesh. So, Bihari does not mean only from Bihar. People from eastern Uttar Pradesh are also called Bihari because of Bhojpuri. Is particularly strongly freighted, and Bhilai's social problems are routinely laid at their door. See the nature of city in less developed country. This is city of a less developed country. This is not the city which was the source of modernization in western history of urbanization. So, implications of this for future growth, now in this situation when these kinds of stereotypes, poverty, traditions and rural institutions prevail, then the following things are obviously more likely: son of soil demands, stigma and segregation, this is stigma, saying that Biharis are like this, Malayalis are like this is also a stigma. Exclusionary politics, weak governance or soft state, deteriorating quality of life, class conflicts and increasing role for civil society actors. In the next lecture, then we will talk about urbanization in India's future and role of civil society, particularly the role of Bhagidari movement. Yes.
So we have discussed somewhere like the division of today's cities in new and old city. You discussed that old cities represented these traditional values, poverty,
Yes.
illiteracy, and the new is totally different, which is totally modern. But in India, we have another part also, that is rural India, which is also represented by these indicators. So, what is the difference between that old part and this rural India? I mean, they are same, or is there any difference between them?
It's basically a matter of proportions. It's not that in rural areas everybody is traditional. It's not that in rural areas everybody is engaged in agricultural work. It's not that all rural populations have low density of population. And it's not that in rural areas everybody is casteist or communal. But when we make these rural urban distinctions on the basis of institutional, social and cultural factors, we only mean that these things exist in greater proportion in urban areas as compared to rural areas.
actually, sir, that study by Perry said that
Hmm.
like, after 40 years,
Hmm.
in the case of Vilayat,
Bilai.
some stigmas are
Yes.
actually distinction is especially in the home rather than the word. He one the word that he used. Actually, it means that even though you are not much urbanized, much modern, much kind of, but some features are they won't change. Even though you are in the US or UK, but some features they won't change. Wherever you are, they won't affect. It will be, I know in IIT also, some people, in my understanding, they say that they are very much modern, but in some cases related to the personal, some kind of related
Yes.
to some aspect, they are very much
Outlook
In
is-
social
outlook
interactions.
doesn't
but
matter.
yeah.
Personal
Externally they are okay, so that we are modern.
In dress up,
Kind of.
in yeah,
language.
language, they look modern.
Modern.
But
But
in-
they are
but-
not modern.
Yeah, they are
You
not.
know,
modern.
they want. You can't change it. You can't criticize it. It's the people. I don't know
Yes.
how we can.
So this is a big distinction between urbanization of developed countries and developing countries. That in developed countries, urbanization occurred more because of industrialization, economic development, cultural change, change in
No,
values,
internalization is not taking place in India. I think
uh,
modern is.
and Western countries produce at that time many more thought leaders, philosophers, intellectuals, political theories and so on. In our countries, urbanization is more a product of demographic transition rather than economic development. So we are in a situation when and another important factor that because of this, because we urbanize more due to demographic transition, not because of economic development, and this has produced the phenomenon of primacy, over urbanization, dual city, urban rural conflicts, a very different kind of urbanization in less developed countries. So we are simultaneously talking of rural development and urban development. So while we have a greater focus on rural development, but we also cannot ignore the requirements of urban development. So if you have National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, Mahatma Gandhi, NREGA, you also have Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, and you cannot ignore the problem. This mission, Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, what are the objectives of this? The objectives are to ensure that the following are achieved in the urban sector. A, focus attention to integrated development of infrastructure services in cities. Infrastructure is poor, and infrastructure has to be developed. B, establishment of linkages between asset creation and asset management through a slew of reforms for long term project sustainability. C, ensuring adequate funds to meet the deficiencies in urban infrastructural services. Government has to intervene. See? This was never the case in developed countries. Now, because of widespread poverty and lack of development everywhere, including in urban areas, now through Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, government is forced to take up problems of development in urban areas. D, planned development of identified cities, including peri-urban areas, outgrowths and urban corridors leading to dispersed urbanization. Dispersed urbanization, so that some people can be shifted away from heart of the city to suburban areas, outgrowths, neighboring towns. Okay. And scale up E is scale up delivery of civic amenities and provisions of utilities with emphasis on universal access to the urban poor. F, special focus on urban renewal program for the old city areas which are in dilapidated condition to reduce congestion. And G, lastly, provision of basic services to the urban poor, including security of tenure at affordable prices, improved housing, water supply and sanitation, and ensuring delivery of other existing universal services of the government for education, health and social security. I would say that if you want to know more about urbanization, then it will be a good idea to go through the 11th 5-year plan, and also go to the website of Ministry of Urban Affairs. You will find a lot of material, including material on Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. And this Bhagidari, in the next lecture we will talk about Bhagidari and related issues. Thank you.